Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Mali, Mozambique, Namibia, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, South Sudan, and Tanzania are all on the Financial Action Task Force Grey List as of year 2024. But the federal government of Nigeria has vowed to exit the Grey List sooner than expected. With my guest on this episode, let's talk about the impact of being on the Grey List economically and the possible moves to get out of this list. I'd like to welcome you to MarketSquare. My name is Oluwa Pelubi, where I'm so delighted to have you join me on the show tonight. Now, as we speak, you will see the exchange rate figures on the screen as we go along in our conversation tonight. During the Financial Action Task Force plenary session in February 2023, Nigeria was added to the Financial Action Task Force Grey List at the time. This was done due to concerns about Nigeria's anti-money laundering policies and counter-terrorist financing measures. Dr. Musa Adamu Aliu, who is the chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Regulated Offences Commission, has assured Nigerians that the ICPC and other anti-corruption agencies are diligently working to ensure Nigeria's removal from the Financial Action Task Force Grey List, which is a good news for me. Together with my guest on the show tonight, we will talk about what being on the Grey List looks like, what that has cost us economically as a country and even as a continent. My guest tonight is Dr. Adegboye, who is an economist and a lecturer at University of Lagos, UNILAG. Dr. Adegboye, welcome tonight on the show. Let's talk about the actual reason Nigeria got added to the Grey List in the first place. I know there is the Grey List, there's also the Blacklist. Let's talk about why were we added to the Grey List at the initial point.
You know, the global financial system is highly interconnected nowadays, and any deficiency in any of the member countries can result in serious displacements across the financial architecture in the globe. So there is the need to ensure that each of the participants in the global financial system conducts its activities in a well-coordinated and safe and responsible way. So that is why the independent intergovernmental body, the FATF, that is the Financial Action Task Force, was set up to ensure a sort of global correspondence among the participating countries, which is effectively all the countries that deal with financial activities across borders. So the FATF, like I said, it's an intergovernmental organization. It conducts correspondence amongst the financial systems across the globe, and it actually has about two categories of membership who are on the negative side of their watch list. You have those who are on the blacklist, like it suggested. Those are the ones that are high risk. They are high risk. They are the high risk jurisdiction that are subject to a call for action. That is the blacklist. Then you have the Grey List that Nigeria has been placed on, which are the countries that are under monitoring, increased monitoring.
That's right.
And requires further actions to ensure that their financial activities are at par with global standard. So specifically what placement on the Grey List implies is that Nigeria is being considered as not doing enough to combat financial malpractices, including issues of money laundering, including issues of terrorism financing and other immoral financial activities that the global system frowns at. So what they are saying is that Nigeria is not doing enough to combat these challenges. Nigeria is not doing enough to ensure that money laundering, terrorism financing and other negative financial actions are not being combated effectively by Nigeria. And they are also saying that essentially our effectiveness in combating financial crimes and terrorist financing, they are deeming it below internationally accepted standards. So we are not up to par, we are not up to standards with the international level in the way we are dealing with these fraudulent financial activities
Yes.
in our country.
Okay. Now, between 2020 and 2021, Mauritius was added to the grey list and was included on the UK European watch list during part of that time. In fact, it took the European Union several months to remove Mauritius from its watch list after the FATF's removal. Now, during the relevant period, Mauritius experienced a significant reduction in foreign direct investment as investors were unable to invest or were even dissuaded from investing as usual through Mauritius. Now, there was also significant barriers to investment and also reduced access to international financial services due to restrictions related to grey-listed countries imposed by the financial institutions that were more stringent and conservative than legally required. Now, you had loss of investors' confidence and significant reputational damage to Mauritius. You had capital and investment flight as investors moved their domicile businesses out of the country. Can we say that we have experienced some of these consequences as we were added to the grey list last year? Can we say we have experienced this in a way? Have we seen investors run away from our country? Have we seen capital flight happen? What's your take on that?
Yeah, by all means, being on the grey list has consequences, specifically for the country that has been placed on the list. Placing the FATF placing a country on the grey list, it says two things. First of all, it alerts the country involved about its conduct in the financial activities, both in form of policy regulations and the actual operational activities going on. And then it alerts the country about its deficiencies and its, the areas where it is lacking. Then it, secondly, and more importantly, alerts the rest of the world about the level of confidence that the FATF or the global financial body is placing on that country's financial system. So they are saying that we cannot guarantee external investors who are coming in. We cannot guarantee you the safety of your funds because we feel that this country is not doing enough to combat negative financial activities. And so if that is the case, any investor coming in from a foreign country, according to the FATF, they are saying that we cannot guarantee your funds. We cannot guarantee, for instance, that your funds will not be misappropriated into financing terrorism, which is a very big red flag for international investors.
Yes, it is.
So it definitely has implications. And being on the watch list, like I mentioned before, it's saying that the country does not have adequate financial framework, which I think Nigeria is actually not in this category because we have a very robust financial framework. But of course, that the financial system is one of the fastest evolving system in the world. So there are a lot of new financial activities coming up that our laws and our rules need to quickly catch up with in order to have a more robust legal framework in the financial system. Then they are also saying that there is weak enforcement of our legal framework and regulations, which is what I feel is actually the case with Nigeria. We have a robust framework, but there is weak implementation. So they are saying these people do not implement, even though your funds have been misappropriated. You may not get it back. So there are implications, especially in terms of private financial investors coming into your country. There is a loss of trust, and as you mentioned, there's a reputational damage. The business world thrives in reputation and trust and confidence. So the confidence in the country nosedives significantly, especially among the high-flying countries, investment countries across the globe. So there are implications, and if the external financiers, the investors, are being told that watch out for this country, they may not be doing enough to safeguard your finances, even though your investment may have a very good chance of having a high return, but they are not doing enough to ensure that your funds are safe and are used in the most globally accepted means. Of course, foreign investors will stay away. So that is some of the big implications, especially for the Nigeria's financial system in dealing with other banks and other financial systems across the globe, and with respect to investors investing in Nigeria. So that is where the big negative implications come from. But one of the implications of being in the grey list is that a country is actually making effort to, it implies that the country is making effort they are committed to addressing the identified deficiencies that the FATF have highlighted. So that is the good thing about the positive about it. So it is saying that yes, this country is aware of this deficiencies, but they are making effort. They are committed at least to ensuring that these issues are addressed. So that is like a window of light with regard to being on the grey list, that investors will know, okay, like these people are really making effort. Perhaps that will mitigate the negative impact on the country.
Okay, now still speaking about consequences for Nigeria, it looks like securing loans from the World Bank so far for Nigeria has been seamless. I mean, and the UK also made a commitment to Nigeria some weeks ago as to supporting us in some way. What ways do you think we have lost out on economic opportunities due to being on a grey list? And I'd like for you to mention specific examples for our listeners to be able to relate with. Because if this is the consequence of being on the grey list, how about those who are on the blacklist? Yeah. So what are the economic opportunities we have lost as a nation because we have been on the grey list, considering the fact that the World Bank seems to yield to us every time we call, and UK's commitment recently?
Being on the watch list, like I said before, relates being on the grey list relates more to the private sector business dealings than the public or multilateral agencies. So the World Bank is a multilateral agency, so it really wouldn't specifically base its dealings with Nigeria on the grey list. Yeah, they may advise Nigeria about some issues. Sure. They may also put some conditionalities on their loans and grants to the country because of what has been raised by the FATF. The same with the UK. These are bilateral negotiations between the two countries that may, because of the relationship they have, may bypass the red lights being flagged by the FATF. So we may still be able. We are of course still expected. The World Bank and the IMF, they work with critical macroeconomic and institutional on those kind of bases. So the most pressing ones. So they may really not fully zoom in on what the FATF is raising about Nigeria when they are dealing with Nigeria. But then, with respect to the private sector, the large multinationals, that is where the issue now lies. Because if a global body is telling you we cannot guarantee the appropriate use of your funds, that's a red flag, like I mentioned. And unfortunately, in Nigeria, we have had a very difficult financial macroeconomic environment in the past few years. So, if we are having a dip in, for instance, FDI inflow into Nigeria, foreign direct investment inflow into Nigeria, we may not be able to specifically pinpoint it and say it is because of the being included on the grey list. That is why we're having it, because definitely we've had yes, our trade balance has been robust, but FDI has not been as good into the country, flowing into the country as we've had in some recent years. So we cannot specifically say that it was because of the the addition on the grey list. But we definitely have had experienced issues of banks complaining about being sidelined by international financial system because of the loss of confidence. Then again, one of the specific issues issues that would have been raised with respect to being included in the grey list is that the Nigeria will now have to face increased scrutiny. So if Nigeria banks are looking for trying to get loans from international banks, they will have to provide a lot of documentation, because now what it is saying is that your country cannot help you because they are on the grey list. So now you have to help yourself. So you know what it is: increased cost of doing due diligence, KYC, and the rest of it. So it has become a lot more difficult and costly, and these lenders will have to factor in this risk that is provided by being on the grey list, factor it in their cost of giving you credit. So more importantly, these smaller companies who were before now having access to international funds on an easier basis will now find it even almost impossible, because it becomes a lot more costly and difficult to provide the backup documents needed to get loans from this national. So it will definitely, it affects the private sector more specifically than the public sector. The government can still go ahead and get loans from the multilateral organizations, but the private businesses who are dealing with other private businesses who are using the FATF as one of their major consideration for doing business, would definitely, this private sector are the ones that are being hit affected. And it is a lot more difficult now to get loan, apart from the issue of exchange rate that has made the loan capital a lot more expensive. The cost of getting the loan, apart from the increased interest rate, where the risk of FATF being on the grey list has been factored in, the issue of cost of getting what you need to provide to get those kind of loans have become prohibitive because of being on the grey list.
Okay, now let's talk about the way forward to exit the grey list, because we know it's a possibility. In 2021, Jamaica was delisted from the grey list. Also in 2019, Morocco was also removed from the grey list there. Now we believe it's a possibility. We've seen this happen over time. Now, what are the possible steps the government can take for Nigeria to exit this list? Remember that the federal government has promised that it will do everything within its power to exit the grey list. What are your recommendations for the government to exit the grey list?
Well, if you look at the 9 points FATF plan, that was like a framework provided for Nigeria and other countries already on the grey list to consider in exiting the grey list, you will find out that a lot of the points talk about prosecution. which relates to implementation. Yes, Nigeria may have to fine-tune some of its financial policies and regulatory framework using even legislation. But of course, we've made some progress. The bill, the oil bill, the petroleum industry bill, has part of its actions related to issues of this kind of financial reputation. But then a bulk of what Nigeria needs to do to exit is implement. We need to be seen as a country that is actually executing its regulations and policies. Prosecute. If people have been found to have been involved in fraudulent financial activities, terrorism financing, trying to money laundering activities, prosecute them. That is what much of the points listed in the 9 points plan that FATF have provided Nigeria to exit the Greylist. Prosecute, make sure that if you have laws, go ahead and prosecute them. So that is exactly what Nigeria needs now. We need to be up and doing in prosecuting cases that have been found. That way you are sending some psychological indication to the investors that we are actually on our toes doing something about these issues. That if, of course, there might be one or two of these issues in our country, but if we find them, we prosecute them. If we know anything, but we implement our laws. So that is what they are saying. Implement the laws you have. You have good laws, implement them. So if Nigeria would implement and go ahead and prosecute some of these laws, that is a very useful way. When we were included in a similar list in 2001, that was when the EFCC was set up, and it was on its toe prosecuting cases of fraud and money laundering, and that was why we were able to exit it after 2 years. So it requires about 2 to 5 years to exit it, but it takes a lot of action, especially relating to implementing the rules you already have on ground. So that is what we need to exit.
Okay. Now, on the final note, Dr. Adegboye, what are the potential impacts going forward? You saw the figures for the inflation figures for the month of July, how that we experienced a kind of a decrease from what it was before. What are the potential impacts going forward, given where we are at the moment?
Yeah, going forward, Nigeria needs to take its reputational issues more seriously than we are now. Currently, of course, there's no country in the world that you will find some elements who try to be corrupt or fraudulent or even with tendency to terrorism. But these countries have stood up at each and every point to combat this. So Nigeria needs to be seen as standing up and fiercely combating these challenges that we have. So if you look at Nigeria, apart from the financing itself, although the financing serves as a base, we found out that in this country we will be combating terrorism for so long, and it has become something like a routine activity. And there's a lot of corruption in it, especially in financing it. So we need to sit up as a government. It has to begin from the top. The presidency needs to sit up. What really do we want to do about this terrorism financing and fraudulent financial activities in this country, and take a way forward? So because of the implication, because of the issues around it, of course, we have it has contributed. Like I mentioned, we are in a very difficult financial situation now, rising inflation and all the rest. But if investors are having a second thought before coming into your country, of course, productivity is going to fall. Definitely. It's going to go down. And that is going to translate to a lot of other macroeconomic issues, including inflation. So there are both direct and indirect implications of being in the grey list, which the government, I personally think government needs to really sit up and take the bull by the horn and say, enough is enough. We need to fight this issue, both starting domestically.
Okay.
Then, by the time you deal with issues domestically, the external front will definitely have been won halfway.
Dr. Adegboye, thank you for coming on MarketSquare tonight. We're glad you came here, and we look forward to having you in subsequent editions. Thank you for watching tonight. Do well to follow us on all our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok as well. Now, if you have questions in regards to what has been discussed, you can put it in the comments, and I look forward to your comments as well with regards to today's episode. My name is Oluwapelumi Awe. See you on Thursday.